Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
and Liz.
And I'm really sick, so if I sound really weird or you hear sniffling, that's why. I told Diva I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to mute myself to blow my nose here and there. I'm at the point now where like my nose just wants to be blown every like 30 seconds. And I want to
Oh
give it what
no.
it wants because it feels
Need
much
some
better.
Dayquil, some NyQuil, dude.
I can't take shit like that. I don't do
Really?
meds. I don't like medicine. I'll take ibuprofen and like allergy pills, and like that's all like my delicate psyche can handle before I'm like, I'm gonna start having an acid flashback. Like I really freak out. I don't do anything.
Dayquil's chill though, I feel like. You can just take Dayquil.
I don't know. It scares me. I'm so
Really?
delicate. It'd probably make me drowsy. I am very delicate, and I like honestly anything makes me drowsy. It is super easy to make
Mm.
me like fall asleep. So,
That's the whole point of
except
Dayquil. It's got the word day in it.
I know, but it's still one of the side effects is drowsiness, and it fucking makes me drowsy. Ironically, one of the only things to not make me drowsy is fucking Xanax, and I'm like, seriously, seriously,
The
why I take
drowsiest
you?
thing. The
Yeah, and I'm
drowsiest
just
thing.
like, I take it, and I'm like, well, that was a fucking waste of time. Yeah, I only take it
Wow.
to go on planes, but it doesn't work anymore, so I have to take different shit.
Mm.
Anyway, sorry we're stacking our episodes this week, guys. We got behind last week because we had a very exciting week. Diva's show opened at LACMA and it was fucking awesome. If you guys
Now
are in
you
the
just
LA
get
area, you gotta go.
extra triple stack content. I'm trying to come up with like a food
Yeah.
metaphor. Sandwich.
Yeah. We also
Something.
have to find a time very soon. P.S. Very soon to do the Patreon because I'm fucking ready. I'm locked and loaded. I got my Patreon game strong. I finished the fucking mountains of research. Let's fucking do it. Yeah.
Nice.
But anyway, we'll at least get the regular ones out.
Yes.
So this is part one of murders solved by blood spatter analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I gotta tell you guys, most of these cases are like people still claiming innocence and
Yeah.
saying like the blood analysis is wrong. And
I didn't expect that. I was just like, yeah, blood splatter. And then like, blood splatter analysis, that's a thing I've seen on Dateline. And then really quickly in making the list, I was like, oh, I still want to do this, but interestingly, it's like highly questioned.
it's really actually super fun when we do a
Yeah.
case or a list of cases and we get unexpected results. It's really, really
Yeah. I
interesting.
didn't know it was so suspect. I knew that about hair and fiber
Yeah.
evidence, but I did not know that about blood. I thought blood was like boop boop airtight. Like,
No, it's not. And my first case is actually going to talk a bit about that. So I guess we should just get into it, yeah?
yes, you go first.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to talk about Bonnie Lee and Warren Horinek. These two lived in Texas together. They were married. Warren, pardon me. Warren was a police officer for a while, and Bonnie was a lawyer. Now, Bonnie was super smart. She was very analytical. She was very like, she wouldn't get flustered in arguments. She was very level-headed.
Mm-hmm.
Warren, by contrast, was super, super hot-headed, very like emotional, not great at arguing. It was mostly just like feelings and anger. And the two of them somehow fell into a relationship, fell into a marriage, and liked to drink a lot. A
Okay.
lot. Now, Warren liked to drink so much, and this will tell you something because this was in the 90s in Texas. He drank so
Mm-hmm.
much that they fired him from the police. He was a cop and they fired him.
Oh, that takes a lot.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say, do y'all know how much that takes? Like what that takes to get
You have to
fired?
be really out of control. Like,
You have to be fucked up.
yeah.
And he was. He was. So let's get into it. So at the time this story takes place, Warren, I don't believe, was working like at all. Bonnie obviously was a lawyer. She was making money, doing well, probably living in Texas with her money alone. The couple was fine. He had been fired kind of recently, I think, but not like super recently. Anyway, on the evening of March 15th, 1995, the two went out. Bonnie worked till about 7 p.m., 7:15, and then met Warren at, I believe, a TGI Fridays, I want to say, or some sort
Okay.
of restaurant of that ilk, you know.
Cool.
I think it
For
was a
drinks.
TGI Fridays. Yeah. They were going to get drinks, and they drank a lot. Now, they were at this restaurant. I think they had food.
Hmm.
Um, it was a TGI Fridays for sure.
Drinks are not good there. I just want to say that. They're going to be brightly colored and weak and
Weak as
juice
fuck.
filled.
But
Yeah.
here's what these two did. They took the possibility of watering down the drinks out of the equation. Bonnie was drinking Chardonnay, which, like, that is such
Mm.
a hardcore white lady beverage. Like, Chardonnay is so narnar. Like,
It's
I've
gross.
been I've been learning from my work that it's always like the groom's mother that wants Chardonnay, and if that's the case, watch out
It's
for her.
gross.
Watch out.
Watch
'Cause
out.
she's a
I
hard
just,
bitch.
unless it's like, I'm to sound like it's such an asshole snob thing to say, but if it's like above $20, I can maybe drink it. But like a Chardonnay that's like in any way cheap tastes like fart.
I've heard it's just really, really sweet. I don't drink, but I've heard that they're, like,
No,
sickeningly sweet,
no, no, no.
and
It tastes like stink.
that's disgusting, and also I know
Trust
what
me.
you mean. I've drank wine enough that I know that.
Stinky. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's disgusting. Well, to match her Chardonnay, Warren here was drinking Coors Light, so they are both
Oh
having
God. Okay.
a classy time.
All
Uh,
right.
Now, during the night, Warren was served beers at 7:01, 7:26,
Ooh,
7:50, 8:22, 8:46, 9:08, 9:24, 9:50, 10:21, 10:48, and 11:04. That is 11 drinks in 4 hours.
okay. I mean, Coors Light is like water, but that is, but he's going at quite a clip though. Like he's,
He's yeah. I mean, there's
yeah,
enough in there that 11 of those you're gonna be pretty
yeah,
wasted.
yeah. I'd say so.
Bonnie was served wine at 7:34, 8:22, 8:58, 9:35, and 10:21. So 5 glasses over around the same span. So much
Okay.
less, but also wine tends to have a higher alcohol
No,
content.
no, that's still a lot for one person because that's like over a bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's about a bottle. A bottle is
yeah.
typically around 5 pours, so it's like at
Okay,
least a full bottle in like 3.5 hours,
that's
which
pretty good. Yeah.
you're gonna be tipsy.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the 2 left, the TGI Fridays just after 11 p.m., right around 11:30, and, Bonnie apparently was, one of the servers overheard Bonnie and Warren not arguing, but Warren complaining that Bonnie was gonna be going on a business trip, and Bonnie just sort
Mm,
of very logically, very, like, unemotionally being like, "It is what it is. I'm a lawyer. I have to go on a trip. Like, that's what it is." Right? So that's all we know. Uh, this is actually March 14th because the actual incident occurred in the middle of the night, I guess. So it was March 14th that this happens. They go home, and just after midnight, on now the morning of the 15th, Warren Horinek calls 911. Now he's wasted and he tells the dispatcher something unintelligible, but the dispatcher makes out that he's trying to say something Bonnie just did to herself, and he's demanding an ambulance.
hmm.
And they finally, and I've listened to the 911 call, is pretty, it's like weird. I don't know. You can tell he's wasted, but he's like upset. It's hard to tell what's going on. But he's basically like, "My wife shot herself. Get an ambulance here right now." And he's like very like angry, but also like out of it. But what he basically says is like, "My wife shot herself." And they're like, "Well, can you give her CPR?" Very important. Warren had been trained in CPR. So he starts to administer CPR. And he's doing this while the police and the ambulance are coming. Police and ambulance arrive. They take Bonnie to the hospital. she's pronounced dead. Okay. Now they look into this. And at first they're like, the trajectory of the bullet seems like it would be difficult to shoot somebody as a murder. The gun was pressed against her chest. It was a shot to the chest, which is not that common for somebody to kill somebody with a gun pressed against them, but it's
Right.
not unheard of for sure.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No,
It's happened.
no. Um, they also they were like, why he put like a shirt or pair of pants or something around her. Oh, it was a pillowcase he put around her neck because he
Mm,
thought she was bleeding from her neck and thought
mm,
she had shot herself there, apparently. Um, and it turned out it was a chest wound. So when, there's pictures of him right after everything happened in like a blood soaked shirt. He's like in his underwear in like a white t-shirt and it's
yeah.
covered in blood. So they rule it a suicide. Like right off the bat, life goes on. Bonnie's family is like, absolutely not. This was
Mm,
not a suicide. Bonnie was not suicidal. Bonnie was happy. She was successful. She was level headed. Um, and they're pushing and pushing and pushing. So the prosecutor in Texas is like, I'm not taking this up. Like the district attorney is like, we're not. There's nothing to prosecute. Like the medical examiner ruled it a suicide. All of the investigating that we did, bullet trajectory, where the gun was, what he said, blood, whatever, suicide. They even had a blood spatter analyst come in and he said, these drops are from him administering CPR. There were
yeah.
tiny little microscopic blood all over like his shoulders, like spots. And
From the
he's like,
compressions.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
analyst is like, those are from the CPR. They're from like, nothing indicates that he was close to her body when the shot was fired. Like it is, whatever. Her family, who apparently has some money, hired their own investigator and like a private prosecutor or something. Like I had never really
Wow.
heard of that,
Their
but
own team here.
they get their own team involved and this team starts digging. They start doing a ton of, researching, interviewing people, talking to her coworkers, her family. The whole reason the family is like this was a murder is because of their relationship, the relationship between Warren and Bonnie. And just to give you a little idea of what that was like, Warren, according to neighbors, according to friends, according to family, was a mild-mannered, nice guy when he was sober. When he was
Okay.
drunk, he was horrible and nobody
Oof.
wanted to be around him. Nobody,
Okay.
right?
Oof.
Nobody wanted to be around him. Everybody fucking hated him.
Yeah.
So, he was also abusive verbally, potentially physically, and most notably, there was a time where he and Bonnie were home. He wanted to show her something on the TV. They had both been drinking. Bonnie started putting her fingers in her ears and was saying, I'm ignoring Warren. I'm ignoring Warren. I'm ignoring
I
Warren.
mean, it's
Yeah,
kind of good.
yeah. And yeah, it is. It rhymes. It's very, very
It's
clever.
fun. Yeah.
Warren got so upset that he grabbed a gun and shot it into the wall above her head.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So the family is basically like, this guy's violent. He's like big into
Yeah.
guns. We want to investigate this. Now, the investigation turns up several things. One of the things that it turns up is that the gun that was used was belonged to Warren, not to Bonnie. And they knew this because he had done something to it that is beyond my scope of understanding. But essentially, a lot of cops do something to their second gun. So if they have two guns, they like file something down or remove something. I don't really understand.
So it's
But
not like a
basically,
traceable or something?
no, it's not even that. I don't know why they do it. There was no explanation. I tried to look it up, and the explanations that I got were beyond my comprehension. But essentially, there
Yeah.
was something that had been done to the gun that indicated that it belonged to Warren from his time as a police officer and that it was like his backup gun.
Okay.
Second, they noted that when her body was found, the gun was not in her hand. And now 95% of the time or something like that, when people shoot themselves into suicide, the gun is found in their hand. So the
Right.
gun was not only not found in her hand, but they couldn't find any fingerprints on the gun, which is like,
Mm,
how did that happen? Right?
yeah.
The gun was near her, but it was not in her hand. Now, one of the things that made them originally think that it was a suicide was that she was laying in bed, and apparently a lot of people, like, lay down and get comfortable before killing themselves. So that was
Right.
really in her favor, or in their favor of saying suicide. However, that means she wasn't standing up. There was no way for the gun to, like, drop out of her hand and fall a distance away. So the flip side of the whole laying down theory is like, well, then why wasn't the gun in her hand? Like, there's no
Yeah.
reason that it wouldn't be, right? Now, all of this is kind of circumstantial. They've got the abuse, they've got, the people hearing kind of an argument of sorts at the restaurant, they've got the heavy drinking, and now they have kind of this idea that, like, if she shot herself, then why wasn't the gun in her hand? Um, but they don't really have enough, right? That's not
Yeah.
enough. So they bring in another blood spatter analyst, and this is the guy who trained the first one. So the first guy to do his analysis was trained by the next guy to come in.
Okay.
And yeah, and he comes in and he says, you know, this blood analysis is basically garbage. Like, he's kind of rude about it. And he's like, this is
Mm,
garbage. They've already kind of determined that even though it was a close contact gunshot, it definitely could have been shot by him. Like, he could have been on her chest,
yeah.
or he could have just walked up to her and she was had her eyes closed and didn't expect anything. Like, there's no reason to think that, like, that couldn't have happened. So now, but again, it's like he said, she said, right? So they talked to this blood spatter analyst, and he goes, all this super, so on, like I said, on the shirt, there was this super fine, like, micro spray of blood. And what
Yeah.
he said is the idea that that came from chest compressions is ludicrous because those spots would be far larger. And the gunshot, if her shirt had moved and was no longer, the hole of her shirt was not aligned with the hole in her chest, the blood wouldn't be spattering out that way anyway.
Okay.
So basically, he's like, the shirt was blocking the blood from, like, coming out. So the idea that this fine mist was created by chest compressions is fucking bullshit. Now, they kind of use that and they're like, this guy's basically saying the only way this could happen is the fine spray from a close contact gunshot. So he shot her at close range. He got that fine spray on him from that. He fucking did it. They go to
Okay.
a grand jury. They indict him. He goes to trial. He is convicted and he's given 30 years. Now it's second degree,
Okay.
which is why he got 30 years. So this was in 1996. He is eligible for parole in 2026. He has been
Okay.
fighting to get out this entire time. I'm gonna take a quick break, guys, because I have to blow my nose. I'm probably not gonna pause this, so it'll just be dead air for like 2 seconds.
Snot break. I should say some witty commentary while you blow your nose.
You did great.
Snot
That's
break.
it. That was quick, yeah. Um, so the reason that so first he appeals in 1998, and they go back over everything. It's only been a few years, and they're like, "No, like, none of this, proves anything to us. Like, you have been violent, you have, like, a drinking problem, you lost your job, we have the blood spatter, we have, like, the fact that it definitely could have been you shooting her, it was your gun, yada yada." So they uphold his conviction. Now, more recently, about 15 years after his conviction, new blood spatter shit has come to light. New shit has come to light, as Lebowski would say, right? So
Yeah.
one of the things that they called out um was that Brett so okay. So basically they came out and said a single gunshot is unlikely to produce the amount of spatter seen on Warren's shirt. They point out that in order for the spatter to come out like that, it would have had to have been multiple, like, explosions of blood. That's a disgusting way to put it. That is consistent
God.
with that's consistent with CPR. The flex.
Right. Right.
The other thing that they brought up, which I think is actually really important and convincing, is that she was still alive when he called 911. So she was still
Mm,
alive, and her chest and lungs were filling with blood. So as she's breathing and as he's pushing on her, doing CPR to get her to breathe, bloody air is coming out of her nose like an aerosol and
Yeah.
spraying fine blood mist onto his shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
So now they've overturned basically the junk science of the blood spatter, and said, all of what you read or thought is wrong. They actually did tests where they breathed bloodiness onto a white shirt and it produced a super similar spatter to what was
How
on
did
his
they do
shirt.
that? I guess they guys kind of sniff it in and then they just sort of exhaled.
And then exhale it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So what they concluded is that this blood spatter analyst, the one who came in and was like, the guy I trained is a moron. This dude's name was Bevel. They were like, no, sir, you were just misinformed. And it's not that he wasn't doing a good job. Like the guy that he trained really did miss some really important things. Whereas this second blood analyst was correct in as far as blood spatter analysis knew at the time. So he was using the full breadth of his knowledge. But then 15 years later, they've continued using and exploring blood spatter, and they're saying, well, what we thought was true back then is actually not true. And in fact, this guy could have been performing CPR. So I don't know who to believe. Like her friends, her family, her coworkers, they were like, she had plans for a week from now. She was never stressed. She was super happy. She had a normal life. They actually had somebody who like assesses people's chances of committing suicide. They had him analyze her post mortem, which is like the
Huh.
first time he'd ever done it. But he came
Yeah.
out and was like, she is not a candidate for suicide. Like in my experience, I would not say that she would have killed herself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. Like it's a very like
Wow.
up in the
He's still
air.
in prison.
He's still in prison. There's multiple
Oh,
websites claiming his innocence, trying to free him. He's gonna get out in 3 years. But I just want to point out
okay.
that this guy is like a drunk, wife abusing former cop. So it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy,
Yeah.
to be stuck in
I
prison for a crime
mean,
he didn't commit,
I don't know. I like this
potentially.
wasn't as decisive as I felt it was going to end up here. What do you think?
I know it sounds terrible because everybody deserves justice, but I'm not super worried about it because fuck him. I think the
Right.
amount of abuse that he subjected her to, he should have spent some time in prison shooting at her, abusing her, berating her. God knows what else he did to
Sure.
her. She did tell friends she was afraid of him. So, I mean, he was making
Yeah.
her life miserable. So, I just don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
one other thing. Sorry, I totally forgot about this, but this may change your mind. But okay, let me just say it. When police arrived, he told them that he thought somebody came in through the window and shot her. So, and then
Mm,
changed his story to she shot herself. So
I
he told
mean,
the 911 operator she shot herself. When the police arrived, he told them somebody shot her, and then he later switched it back to she shot herself. That being said, the people who investigate suicide say oftentimes people who are present at the suicide will say things like that because their brain is having a difficult time processing what happened. So they'll try to be
yeah.
like, "No, they didn't kill themselves. Somebody must have come in and done it." So it's not atypical for that to happen. But that's the last piece. Sorry, I totally forgot that.
No, I mean, it's not as definitive he's innocent as I thought it might be. When you start to do the turnaround with the blood spotter, it's like the blood spotter is questionable, I guess,
Yeah,
but like
it is.
there's so many other things though that look bad for him.
There really is. And that's the
The
thing is
fact
where
that he's
I'm
like a
like,
violent, shitty drunk and he's violent and
yeah,
abusive.
he was
Da
one
da
of the
da.
60% of cops that beat his wife,
Yeah.
like I said, this is one of the I have to be honest, the reason that I took this case on is because basically all of them are like potentially innocent people fighting to get out.
And
And
this
I
one
was
you
like,
feel the
this one
least
doesn't
bad
really
about.
make me mad. Yeah, like this doesn't really
Yeah.
make me upset.
You're
Like I'm
not gonna
fine.
lose sleep over it. Yeah.
I'm really not. So that's why I took
Okay.
this. It was kind of like a favor to my own soul to just be
Okay.
like,
I can
I
see
don't
that.
care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I think he did it? I don't know. If he was given like life in prison, I'd be much more upset. But he was given 30 years. So he still gets to get out in his like 60s and live out the rest of his life. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That's it though. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, now you talk and I'm gonna
It's
blow my nose a lot.
it's kind of a blood splattery splatter. I saw the picture too. It's kind of like real splattery.
Yeah, it's real splattery, but like it's hard. It's just hard to
It's hard
say.
to know. Yeah.
It is a really difficult case. If I were on the jury, I probably would have said innocent, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's also an
Well,
inexact science from what I've seen that like you can make a really good case for why the blood had to get on him this way, and then you can do the same for a totally different way. Like it's
right.
an exact science.
And what's really fucked up is to be honest, this is kind of shitty. Since the new kind of blood spatter science has come out, they haven't allowed him a retrial. They haven't really taken that into
Mm,
consideration, and
right.
that I do think is pretty shitty. So, yeah, but there it is.
Oh my gosh.
Warren Horinek. If you look him up, there's like 500 fucking websites and studies saying
Yeah.
like he's innocent, release him.
Mm,
Yeah,
interesting.
it may be
Okay.
right. All right, what's yours?
Well, okay, this was gonna be a roller coaster ride. I was gonna say it's gonna be all angering all the time, but that's not entirely true. But it
Oh
is gonna be a roller
God.
coaster.
Okay.
This is the case of Stephen Lawrence. I'm sure you know this a little bit at least. Or I shouldn't assume,
Oh.
but this actually slipped through the cracks in our hate crimes list, and I wanted to do it for
Oh
that list,
shit.
and I didn't because there was just a lot of choices, but which is horrible. But this was like a run, so I was happy, not happy, but interested to be able to have the chance to do it again.
Right.
Um,
This is a tale
for
that you
to
thought
do it.
should be told, and now you get
Yes.
to chew. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and it's riveting, and there's a lot of fucking crazy shit. So this happened in 1993 in Eltham, in the UK. Stephen Lawrence was born in 1974. He was 19 years old at this time, and he was the son of Jamaican immigrants, really hardworking, awesome people. He grew up in Plumstead, which is where he lived, and he was studying technology and physics in high school, which I guess you specialize in high school in England,
Yeah, yeah.
unlike us.
They just decide if you're worthwhile or not much earlier on. So they're like,
Yeah,
you
well, they
should
also you have
get
to like
like,
pick a career earlier, right? To like you have to
yeah,
kind of pick a direction.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so he wanted to be an architect, and he was also taking college courses at the time as well to sort of start off that career. So he was like really dedicated and smart.
That's very
Um,
cool.
on April 22nd, 1993, Stephen had a normal day at school. He visited some stores, or the shops, as the British say. He visits his uncle, and at his uncle's house, his friend Dwayne Brooks comes over. They play video games together, and they leave around 10 p.m., I believe, to go back to Stephen's house. And they take the bus.
Okay.
They had to get out and change over buses, so they get out at a bus stop on Well Hall Road. There, they are approached and pretty rapidly assaulted by a group of 6 white male teen boys.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, not
here we
surprising.
go. Yeah, so the boys yelled racial slurs at them, which you can imagine. And
Yeah.
Dwayne says that they engulfed Stephen. That's the word he used.
Yeah.
So
So really
six
just
on
focused
one.
on him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fucked up.
it's not a fair fight in any capacity. The teens in question here, for some reason, I don't have all 6, but I have 5. They are Luke Knight, brothers Neil and Jamie Accourt, Gary Dobson, and David Norris. Um,
Okay.
we're going to talk a lot about the last 2, but there's 5 key players here.
Right.
These are members of a very loosely formed racist gang that basically went around their neighborhood doing petty crimes and attacking Black people in shitty racist attacks. That's what they do with their time.
That sounds good. They sound like good people, not just
Yep.
wastes of space, taking of
Uh,
resources.
Also, I don't know why, but like my husband and I have talked about this, probably because we just watched a horror movie called Eden Lake. If anyone's seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But a gang of British hoodlum teenagers is specifically terrifying.
It really is. There's like a particular
Oof.
level of like evil in a group
Yeah.
like that. So many of the murders
Oof.
and stories in England are like a group
So
of boys.
scary.
Because I
Yes.
think that there was such a crazy, especially like back in the 70s through like the 2000, like early
Yeah.
2000s, like there was such a huge divide between the haves and the have-nots, kind of like what's
Yeah.
happening in America now, you know?
Yeah, oh
And
yeah, for sure.
I
And there's
think
these
it breeds,
unsupervised kids just
yeah.
running around.
Well, they're in the system. A lot of the kids like don't even have families. They're in like halfway
Yeah,
houses, and it's
right.
just fucked up. Anyway, doesn't
So,
excuse anything.
for example, this gang had threatened a 16-year-old black boy named Kevin London with a large knife just a few months prior. That's the kind of stuff they do. I'll mention a few other things here in a second. And David Norris's dad, Clifford Norris, was actually a powerful gangster that ruled over a huge portion of the drug trade of South London. So he actually is like a drug lord, kind of. Um,
Ugh,
so
that's yeah, that's not good.
it's thought that Norris Sr. may have been in with the police or corrupted some police. So just going to ask you to file that away for later because we'll come back.
Yeah. Mm,
So he had previously gotten the authorities to drop charges of attempted murder against his son and other gang members for them attacking a young woman with a sword.
I mean, come on.
Casually. Yeah.
That's very much attempted murder. Like I feel like that is like a textbook definition and a really
Yeah.
specific thing.
Yeah. Another time, the gang stabbed two brothers who were black, and these charges are also withdrawn. So these are
Shocker.
basically the rich, entitled, spoiled kids of drug lords whose daddies keep getting their charges dropped.
Right. Right. Okay.
That's where we are. Um,
Okay.
so back to the crime scene. That's who's at play here. Dobson, Norris, and friends attack Stephen brutally. They stab him several times in the chest and shoulder, piercing several arteries and piercing a lung.
Oof, that's fucked up.
Yep.
That's
The gang
horrifying.
essentially runs away in one direction, with Duane and Stephen running away in the opposite direction. And Stephen somehow manages, even though his lung is partly collapsed, to run about 130 yards away before he falls and bleeds out.
Just pure adrenaline right there. Pure
Yeah,
fucking
and also he
adrenaline.
was really an avid runner as well, so he was very fit. Um,
Got it.
yeah. So,
Oof.
but still, you don't come back from that. It's horrific.
No,
Um,
no.
and Duane runs and gets help, obviously, and they come take Stephen away. Dobson and Norris and the other perpetrators are quickly named as the perpetrators of Stephen's murder by 26 different sources. So that's like gang
Wow.
contacts, acquaintances. They're clearly talking. Uh, there's people who are like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure they did that. And they're getting this story again and again and again. A woman reportedly called 3 times in the days following, begging them to call her back, saying she knew the whole story. So maybe it's one of their girlfriends or something, right?
Yeah.
And
Jesus.
they just never got around to calling her back.
They were just like, meh. Yeah, because they were
Yeah.
fucking paid off. They were paid off not to.
Despite the suspects being fairly straightforward, no one was arrested for weeks. And the various gang members were subsequently arrested or turned themselves in various orders. And most of them end up, wouldn't you know it, Cindy, having their charges dropped due to a lack of evidence.
Lack of evidence. Only 26 fucking witnesses, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not all witnesses. I think they were just also people that they may have talked to as well.
Right.
So
Right.
in 1996, fast forward a little bit, Dobson, Norris, and Jamie Accord were brought on trial for Stephen's murder in a private prosecution, which I think is like the British version of like a civil suit, which
Okay.
was
Yeah.
funded by the Lawrence family. So this is them pursuing this, not like
So it's
the
kind of similar
justice.
to mine, where it was like
Yeah.
they, yeah, okay. They were like, no, we don't
So
accept
Accord
what the
and
police said. We're
Norris,
gonna do it ourselves. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
they just do it themselves. So Accord and Norris were acquitted before the trial. Dobson was technically convicted, but then the judge acquitted him later. And he said the testimony of Duane Brooks, because remember, there's a great witness that got his friend who was right fucking
The
there,
guy who
right?
watched it all happen. Yeah.
Literally watched his friend get murdered by these people and saw their faces. The judge said that Duane's testimony was not admissible.
Any
And he
particular
said,
reason? Blatant racism? Getting
yeah,
paid off?
Yeah. And he also said there was simply no satisfactory evidence available. So that's what he said.
This is the
Um,
most like blatant fucking thing. This is so fucking
yeah.
blatant. Holy shit.
So yeah. So it's really angering, and the good thing here is that this is not where things end. I'm sure there are other stories where it does end like
It
this.
is. So many. So many. But I'm glad you
Yes.
didn't pick them.
Not this one though. This is actually a very high profile case that really takes the UK like by like a stronghold. Like everyone's obsessed with it and outraged. Everyone is sharing how you and I feel right now about how this went. There's a
Good.
lot of
Yeah.
public outrage, and to make matters, to make people more outraged, I guess to make their own situation worse, the two men, especially Dobson and Norris, frequently appeared in TV interviews proclaiming their innocence. They go on like a little media press tour.
You're kidding me.
In one interview with Martin Bashir, Dobson said that he and his friends were, quote, rascals and lovable rogues.
Nope. Nope. That's
Which
not at all like what the
that I
fuck?
feel like that's probably like what Trump said about like white supremacists in Charlottesville, right? It's just
Yeah.
like,
Like,
oh,
oh,
these
they're great
rascals.
guys. They're just
Yeah, yeah.
rascals. Really great
Yeah, those
guys.
rascals.
Oh my
So he
goodness.
also swore on his mother's life on TV that he's innocent, which like that's rude.
If I was his
Um,
mother, I'd be like, you're fucking disowned, bitch. Like, what
that's
the
really
fuck?
rude. In 1997, this is just more steps in the outrage here. In a pretty rad move for it is pretty disreputable paper, but a very rad moment for them. The Daily Mail ran a headline with the 5 suspects' pictures blown up and just the word "murderers" in all caps,
Hell
huge
yeah.
above them in huge
Hell
print.
yeah.
And the caption said, also in pretty big print, says, "The Mail accuses these men of killing. If we are wrong, let them sue us."
Wow.
And you know what?
Wow.
None of them sued.
Of course not. Because they
Nope.
fucking did it. They
Nope.
fucking did it.
Yeah, so that
Oh
was a pretty
my.
high profile moment there that they did, the Daily
Yeah.
Mail. But also, the Stephen Lawrence family starts a Stephen Lawrence family campaign. So they're fundraising to keep doing legal actions, and they are super, super vocal and loudly advocating for justice for Stephen, criticizing the police, saying the police are bought off, all this stuff. Like they will not stop, no matter what.
Just spewing facts. Straight
Yep.
up. Just
Yep.
facts. Yep.
So they never quit. But
Yeah.
despite all this condemnation publicly, these men basically seemingly got away with it. They went on and lived their lives. Here's some of the dumb stuff they were up to. Dobson here. I just keep calling him Dobson. Gary Dobson and David Norris. So Gary Dobson lived in Kent with his partner and son. He's arrested several times for really dumb stuff. He was unable to hold down a job and would later blame this on all the negative attention he got from when he definitely murdered someone. Wham, wham, wham.
Jesus Christ. Right?
In 2010, he got hit with a charge for trafficking a very large amount of cannabis. So we got a 5-year prison sentence, which I don't support that for cannabis, but still fuck this guy.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So Norris, his drug lord dad, was put in prison, and his daddy's mansion got taken away by authorities. So without his daddy's help, he struggled financially, and he was in and out of prison for exceptionally dumb charges like stealing beer, as well as a smattering of racist incidents with other people. Thankfully, no one else was murdered, but he was just kind of being a dick.
Okay.
He had 5 kids, and later on, his
Wow.
girlfriend would kick him out of the home because he was probably a piece of shit partner as well.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna
he was
say yeah.
staying in a hostel and just doing crime. That's
Jesus
what these
Christ.
two exceptionally cool guys are up to.
That's just how they are.
So the investigation got kind of like cold and then revived periodically over the years, I think depending on who was in charge, right, for politically or whatever.
Right, right.
In 1998, there was a public inquiry into the handling of the case from higher up authorities. And I only
Good.
bring, it's not that eventful, but I only bring it up because this one moment is said to be pretty legendary and how stupid it was because the lead
Uh-huh.
detective, the original lead detective, who's definitely bought off, spoiler alert, the lead detective testifies about when they ask him why did no arrest take place for 2 weeks after the murder, because that's crazy.
Yeah.
He said that he did not know that the law allowed for arrest upon reasonable suspicion.
Are they serious? He actually tried
Yeah,
to
so
say that?
he said that. So
Good God.
that's like what I imagine is on page 1 of like the Law for Babies textbook, right?
Yeah, law for
So
babies.
it's really
The Idiot's
stupid.
Guide to, like, being a
Idiot's
cop.
Guide to Basic Law. Yeah. So
Jesus fuck,
I didn't
dude.
know that if I suspected them, I could arrest them. What? What?
That's fucking wild. Yeah.
What?
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Sure. In 2006, the Independent Police Complaints Commission, which I wanted to make a little footnote there and say, do we have one of those? I don't think we do.
I don't think we do. It would be
Um,
really nice if we did,
That
but we
doesn't sound
don't.
like something we'd have.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Independent Commission to look into shitty cops officially requested that an investigation into police corruption in this case began because a former cop turned whistleblower, I should say a former corrupt cop turned whistleblower, kind of blew the whole thing wide open and
Mhm.
told BBC in an investigation they ran that the lead detective in this case was paid off by Clifford Norris, right? The
There we
drug lord
go.
father of one of
Yep.
the suspects,
Yep.
to basically obstruct the whole case and hide evidence and do a bad job.
Nice. Nice.
And so that kind of comes out, but not much happens about it. I'll give you more later.
Okay.
But in 2006, a proper cold case review began of this case. And in 2008, this doesn't matter, but I just had a note to be petty that they put out a really embarrassing appeal, the cops did, to find that lady caller that they ignored.
Oh, God.
Remember how she was calling and
Yeah.
frantically like,
Yeah.
like, hey, we didn't call you
Yeah.
back, but like, could you? We actually care now, so could you like call us back?
Right.
I don't know if they got her. So actually bothering to investigate, however, in this time does turn up crucial pieces of new evidence. Fibers that came from Stephen's clothing on Dobson and Norris's clothing,
Mhm.
and hair, fibers and hair, the other kinds of suspicious evidence I was just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But boop, 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 here's the blood moment. On the
Okay.
collar of Dobson's jacket was a microscopic stain of Stephen
Okay.
Lawrence's blood that had never
Okay.
been tested with the latest forensics. And forensic analysis claims it would have soaked into the fabric while fresh. They can tell this definitively, apparently.
Okay.
It hit the fabric at a quick velocity. It wasn't like a slow drip.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like a splatter, like a peripheral hit from like a outer periphery of splatter, essentially.
Okay.
There's a splatter sphere and he's in it.
Okay.
It's theorized that it could have come from the knife or the injury itself, but they can tell it's splatter also because of the way the fibers in the blood stain are microscopically are bent. There's impact.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's
So the
insane.
blood hit it at a velocity.
Wow.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So in 2010, teeny blood stain in, having been discovered, Dobson and Norris are finally arrested and charged with Stephen's murder because of that evidence.
Okay.
Before they're tried, a new law passed in 2005 had actually allowed Dobson's old acquittal to essentially be vacated. Because before that would have been a double jeopardy thing, I guess, in the UK. So,
Okay.
but this law basically gets rid of double jeopardy, which probably has other implications.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this case, oh yay, because it allows them to have a separate procedure first where they vacate his acquittal.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not like, I think it's not quite how we have it here, because here a civil suit is separate. So I get,
Okay.
right, you can be convicted of the civil suit and
But
still
not
be innocent. Yeah.
of the other one. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, but anyway, they throw out his old acquittal, which is nice.
Mhm.
Both men continue to proclaim their innocence because they're fucking assholes. At trial, their lawyers claim that the new evidence was a result of cross-contamination. It's not
Mhm.
reliable. And like probably for the hairs and fibers that holds water a bit better, but like
Mhm.
apparently, according to many experts, this blood microscopic dot is like airtight. There's no way it's come from cross contamination. It was applied fresh, like, from the source. It didn't
Okay.
like rub on something else with blood on it or something.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a
In
lot of
20
information. I'm trying to like wrap my brain around.
Sorry.
Also,
It's a
I'm a
lot of
little sick, so I'm like my eyes are crossing. But no, I hear you. I hear you.
fussy blood science.
No, it's good
So in 2011, both I almost call them Doris and Dobson. Dobson and Norris.
though.
Dobson and Norris are found guilty of the murder of Stephen Lawrence, and the following
Okay.
year they are sentenced to detention at Her Majesty's pleasure with minimum terms of 15 and 14 years, respectively. So the
Okay.
reason that it's the wording of Her Majesty's pleasure and not like a life sentence, and the reason they have relatively low minimum terms is because they were being sentenced according to the juvenile law, because they did technically murder him while they were juveniles. So
Okay.
yes, and it's not the US, so we don't just like round up and count teenagers as adults, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's why that's there. However, they still, I think, gave it to him as harsh as they could, given the juvenile sentencing laws.
Right. Uh-huh.
It seems like, remember, Her Majesty's pleasure was also for like Mary Bell and like for
Yeah. I mean, they
some
do
other
let them
gnarly
out.
British teens.
That does
Yeah,
seem to be like the way of sentencing the youth,
yeah. I mean,
you
it's
know.
kind of like a way of saying, we will keep you as long as we think is best, you know. Um,
Right, right.
Period. So
Yeah.
these two assholes have continually appealed their convictions up until like last year, to no success, thankfully. But it's like also like, dude, I mean, the sentences are relatively light. You fucking did this. There's forensic evidence now, and they
Yeah.
cannot stop appealing. Cannot stop appealing. They're so like entitled.
Right.
The investigation into police corruption stopped and started a few times. I don't want to go through all of it because it doesn't ultimately go anywhere. Some former cops were arrested, but then ultimately didn't face charges. Some other ones had to like resign. So there's like a mild strength scandal.
Yeah.
At least some people lost
Yeah.
their jobs, I guess, at best.
Yeah,
Um,
that's something, I guess. I don't know.
better than happens a lot of the time, but
Yeah.
still nowhere near what they deserve, which I think would be criminal punishment for being corrupt and ignoring
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and fucking up a case on purpose. Um,
Yeah. Agree. Hard agree.
and it's
Hard
frustrating, of
agree.
course, that the Court brothers and Luke Knight did so far anyway pretty much get away with it. It's just
Yeah.
Dobson and Norris that happened to have this forensic breakthrough, and that's why they got arrested.
Hmm.
But I'm like, still, why is Dwayne Brooks's testimony dog shit? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm. It's great we have forensic evidence, but like, there's a witness.
Right. I don't understand what
It's
the
weird. Yeah.
yeah.
Also, by the way, I didn't get into it, but Dwayne Brooks also sued, and I think he got like 150,000 pounds or something, and won a small settlement because the cops, the corrupt racist cops, harassed him
Right.
after the case. No, but after the case, they
Oh,
harassed him,
after?
and followed him and would arrest him for frivolous things, and like they were
Oh my
actually like trying
God.
to scare him. Yeah. Uh,
Mm-mm.
and they treated him like a criminal. They treated him like a suspect, even though he's like, I literally saw the guys who did this. Like, um, anyway, but yeah, I still thought that it was crazy that 14 years later, a literal microscopic speck of blood solved, or
This. Yeah.
resolved part of this case. Yeah,
Part of the case. Because we're still dealing with like the racism and the like not believing
yeah,
people and the this, that, and the other. But like
yeah. But at least by
Jesus.
2011, a few not corrupt investigators decided to start giving shit. You
Yeah.
know,
A little bit. A little bit.
a little bit.
I guess that's something. I mean, it's
Yeah,
almost
but
worse that these people like think they get away with it forever and then they don't and they're like doing these fucking like interviews and shit and like living it up and really
yeah.
like hamming it up and then it's like nah,
Yeah. I mean, these
finally.
guys all have punchable faces. They all
Yeah,
strike
they
me
do.
as they all strike me as kids who would have been very, and still were and are as adults, like very entitled and
Yeah.
like little baby men. Um like big adult
Yeah,
babies is what
totally.
they strike me as.
They really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. Agree. Fucking dickheads.
Well, there you
Ugh.
go. It wasn't so much a blood splatter as a blood speck, but I still thought it was interesting. And
No,
also,
it's good.
at least there's some a lack of
resolution.
ambiguity, unlike
Yeah.
some of the other
I'm like,
cases.
yeah, like mine.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. I'm glad. I'm glad that ended the way it did because I really didn't expect it to, and I didn't know this case at all.
Yeah,
So
wow. Yeah, it's a huge deal for England. There's documentaries about it that's like the crime that changed the UK forever. Like it's like a big deal there.
that's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but like, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yoy. All right. Well, cool. That was a lot. Anything else we want to talk about before we get out of here?
Oh. Um,
Guess that's
no,
it,
we both
right?
go pass out. We did it.
Can't wait. I'll probably just like put this out tomorrow because like why not, right?
Yeah.
We're stacking them up. So, okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for listening, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Sorry I sound fucking crazy. It's been a wild last week. We'll be back with 2 more cases. I haven't actually picked my next case because I can't find one that doesn't like upset me. So, I'm gonna have to
Mm.
just bite the bullet and do one. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for the new reviews, you guys. I saw some more uh,
Aw, yay.
yeah, reviews on Spotify especially.
Nice.
More people giving us some love. We appreciate that. We appreciate you. Please like, rate, review, tell your friends and family. Join us on Patreon. We'll have a new one out soon. And
Yes.
until the next episode,
Stay.
off our
Let's.
list album.
Fine.
Bye.